We are all here to learn together. So please be respectful of other people's views, understanding their differences, be kind and considerate in a way we all engage. Yes, we do encourage you all to participate. So please be respectful and drop all your questions in our chat section. And yes, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all are joined us globally. Let's bring in our speakers for today's session. That's Bhargav and Kamal Shri. Hi Kamal, hi Bhargav.
Hey, Parth.
Hi, hi.
Hi Kamal, still no rain in the Bangalore.
No, no rain. I'm still waiting for it. It's getting really humid.
Yep,
So,
yep, yep.
yeah, I
So
don't
yes,
know.
Kamal, we are here with another episode of Copilot Chronicles. What do we have today? It looks little exciting today's session.
Yeah, I hope it is exciting because trying to integrate AI with Power Pages, I see. I mean, there is certainly value there, and I think slowly the AI is picking up. So I think it will be a great introduction to some of the core concepts on how to kind of leverage AI with Power Pages. So yeah,
Okay, great, great. Bhargav, I see your screen there. I would like to share your screen.
sure.
Yep. Yes, Bhargav. So the floor is all yours.
Thank you.
Yep,
So I hope you can see my screen, and
yep.
yeah. So, as part of the reactor, say welcome all. Thanks for giving me this opportunity, Kamal, Parth, and all the folks at MS as well. So, today's topic is supercharging Microsoft Power Pages with AI. So, we will take a look at two different particular aspects, which is basically how already Microsoft is charging, Power Pages with AI through Copilot, some of the key out of the box capabilities, and then additionally how you can interact with some of the other open AI systems out in the web and try to integrate and build solutions. So I'll try to showcase one of the solutions that I have built in which I am integrating with OpenAI. So I might race through a bit. I might be a bit fast. So if there is something that you don't understand, you can follow me on LinkedIn, and you can probably just leave me a message, drop me a message if you're able to unable to integrate. When you have an issue trying to kind of replicate the same sample, and if you go through some issues, let me know. Feel free to buzz me. You can access my LinkedIn profile with the following QR code. As I mentioned, I'm Bhargav. I bought solution architect at TCS currently with over 15 years of experience, certified multiple times in Microsoft certifications across SharePoint, Power Platform, M365, and Azure as well. Currently, I'm part of a team called RapidApps Automation Team, which is a niche team within TCS, delivering digital workplace solutions for various clients and industries.
Hey, Bhargav, sorry, there was a
Yep,
power glitch, so I kind of lost it. So just quick 2 minutes, and then we can continue with it. So I think you've already
absolutely.
taken part of introducing yourself, so you've done an awesome job. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. And apologies, so there was a technical issue, so I had to relog in again. So firstly, thank you so much for the overwhelming response that I'm getting for the Copilot Chronicles, and definitely be having a team of experts joining in every a week, and this time they've asked for variants like roundtable kind of discussions, or can we have multiple speakers. So definitely looking for those kind of formats going forward. We are taking your inputs on these cases. So Bhargav has already introduced, so he has more than a decade of experience working as a solution architect at TCS. So he's an MVP, and he has a lot of experience. So I don't have to talk about him. His content will tell him what he is exactly and what he does. And I'll leave a link for the Global Copilot Summit, which is happening simultaneously. The only locations that is left over is Hyderabad, Mumbai. These are the two locations that is left as of now. And then we have the international location. So feel free, if you are residing in any of these cities, to feel free to register. And Bhargav, I'll not hold on anymore. And please go ahead with your session. We are looking forward to see how we can kind of leverage the AI and the Microsoft Power Pages. And looking forward for your session. The stage is all yours.
Perfect. Thanks, Kamal. So I'll introduce myself. Quickly move on to some of the out of the box. First, for anyone who's joining a newcomer, just a quick glance on what is the Power Platform ecosystem where Power Pages stands. So if you look at it, this is the overall Power Platform ecosystem. You have specific standalone apps and services which are built by Microsoft for their specific purposes. We have the Copilot Studio, which is to build the intelligent virtual agents or chatbot kind of experiences. Power Apps for all your internal application development needs. For all your workflow automation or business process automations, you would use Power Automate. And then for all your business analytic needs like developing your reports and dashboards, you would rely upon Power BI. But for all your portal development, in order to expose your enterprise data, thereby kind of leveraging the backbone as Dataverse in the background, you would use Power Pages, and it acts as the website development app and service, which is part of Power Platform systems. But when you look at systems, uh, you know, Power Platform as a system advocated for rapid acceleration development, no code, low code kind of system, right? As much as you can out of the box quickly configure enterprise grade applications using no code, low code capabilities with Power Pages from the out of the box Power Pages Design Studio. You can also additionally extend some of those particular out of the box pages by building certain custom components, developing your own widgets, web template components, utilizing the concept of web template components. You can develop your own widgets which are reusable in nature, generic, and then also you leverage certain AI capabilities which we are going to see today. So all the three capabilities, which is the no code, low code, pro code, are can be assimilated together when it comes to Power Pages. So this is a great slide to explain what are some of the standard features that are part of the out-of-the-box Power Pages. So all your web pages and page content, traditionally how you can just put in some static content onto the pages, how to style your themes or your core branding elements. All those aspects can be taken care from the Power Page Design Studio. You can also enable the authentication and authorization aspects, provide multi-language support, content snippets, and all of these standard set of features can be achieved through Power Pages Design Studio. But when it comes to extending it through anything with the pro code measures, you need to probably rely upon uh, you know uh, concepts such as developing your own grids, input forms, using Liquid Code or Power Pages Web API in order to build that with the power of some of the out of the box front-end UI capabilities such as JavaScript, HTML, CSS. One of the AI components that we will see today, which I have integrated with OpenAI, relies upon the fundamentals of JavaScript, HTML, CSS as a solution in order to be able to communicate there. But wired with a lot of the aspects that we are seeing here in this diagram, which is basically using uh, the Power Automate as the background process in order to go and communicate with the OpenAI and retrieve the results and be able to show it in our front-end UI. So basically, for anyone starting new, you need to know that it kind of provides the best of both worlds. A no code, low code approach to start with to establish your foundational website, and then add layers on top of it with the pro code capabilities. Especially when you have teams like fusion teams which are working together, it becomes really important to understand who does what and what kind of capabilities each role kind of brings in as part of the fusion team in developing intelligent sites. So as a somebody young starting out, how do you want to test it out? You want to do your own thing? How do you start with? So you can probably wire up a Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 trial account, and you can enable the developer plan on top of it. Create your database environment, and as a standard practice, I would always encourage to create a solution to ensure that all your components are binded together and also exportable between environments as well. For extensibility capabilities, you have Visual Studio Code that you can utilize. Visual Studio Code for web is something that comes out of the box integrated with Power Pages Design Studio. But for anything, like for example, I am more comfortable with Visual Studio Code, I would probably use Visual Studio Code, and also use certain extensions, Windows PowerShell as well as the Power Platform tools extensions on Visual Studio Code, in order to be able to work with some of the Power Platform pack CLI commands, and as well as there is a tool developed by the community, leading experts who have a subset of tools which are integrated through a particular toolbox called XRM Toolbox. Quite an intelligent set of tools available there. Generally, for Power Pages, I use the Database REST API Builder, Fetch XML Builder, and some of the Power Pages helper tools as well. So these are some things that you might want to remember in order to be able to take a get started with how to go about working with the Power Pages development. So the first part of our agenda is to see how charged already it is by AI, right? So we'll see how Copilot is playing a very important, crucial role in our demo. So I wanted to quickly run through the slides. Nobody likes slides. Let's start looking at things more on a more practical basis. But that's why I just didn't want to, bring in a lot of slides. I have a very few set of slides, so 5 to 8 slides, another three more slides to cover, and then we'll directly get into the practical aspects of it. Quickly to highlight from the AI perspective, Copilot plays a crucial role already with the Power Pages Design Studio. Microsoft has introduced it on the home page where you can actually generate almost the entire layout of your particular website. You can provide a particular description, as you see on the screen itself. It says that build a local government website where citizens can report non-emergency incidents of vandalism in their area, and that's it. That's the input that it requires, and it kind of builds the common set of pages that it expects for a particular website, and it comes up with all the wireframes to you and displays those particular wireframes in order to take a look at them, and those particular wireframes can be used as a foundation and then can be individually extended, right? So next is the Copilot in the page editor, which we will take a look. Once you create the particular page, you have the Copilot editor where you can actually create your forms, create the page design, add some certain themes, and also work with generating certain content that is required to be added onto your page. Then we have the Copilot capability coming in through Visual Studio for Web, as well as Copilot capability coming through Visual Studio Code. So we'll take a quick look of all of this, what exists with the Copilot, and then quickly moving on to the more, I would say, deep dive explanation on trying to integrate with our OpenAI Web as well. So there are some good to know things. What is important is currently the feature is supported by not supported by non-English input. It is preview for so the United States region only. So whenever you are creating with your environments, ensure that your browser is set to United States, and then also your environment is set to United States. There is a limited number of tokens that are allowed in the query and the response. So that is also something that you might want to take a look. Um, so Copilot might not have sometimes all the correct names with your tables or columns. So it's recommended that you verify all of this before you actually, you polish your code that Copilot generates. Ensure that some of the API schema files are taken and looked into when it comes to the table definitions or your column definitions, and then replace those particular Copilot generated values with the actual values from the schema definition files, and then you work with those particular code elements. uh, Also, the most important tip is context is very important for Copilot. So if you're working with particular web template, and then you're asking it to generate a web API code or a JavaScript file, then it makes more context. It makes more sense for it to develop to generate the code from the context of where you're calling it from. So ensure that you're actually in the appropriate file when you're working with the page template. Ensure you're properly selected that, and when it comes to the web template, you're properly selected there. Or if you're working with a JavaScript file and you want to just generate a validation against a particular control, and then you want a quick code snippet out of it, you can probably keep that as well in mind to ensure that you are on the stayed on the uh, current context of what you want to generate, right? um, there is a thumbs up and thumbs down feature integrated into the Copilot. It's very important. So start utilizing that. I think Microsoft kind of relies upon the feedback. If there is something good that is Copilot is generating, ensure that you rate it well, so that the results are getting fine tuned in the background, and then it knows that from the context perspective, it is able to deliver the results as expected. Um, Also, Copilot, my general observation is that it's very good in providing code responses in Visual Studio Code for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery. also with liquid template language, right? So these things are pretty good. I see that where it kind of does not really do a good job is, especially say suppose I'm working with a web template component, pertaining to my CSS and HTML, I kind of uh, you know get good results when it comes to Copilot. But when it comes to the manifest section of the particular web template component, it kind of does not understand that, and it does not have the capability to provide you the manifest details part, especially when it comes to be it layout or be it to the form, form related aspects that you want to actually showcase within that particular manifest file. But having said that, but it does a great job with all the other rest of the activities and helps you. Basically, what is Copilot? People should understand that Copilot, of course, it is like a magic wand that you can weave, but it does not have foolproof results, right? So sometimes you need to look at it, tailor it. That's where the second or the third point comes into picture, where you need to look at the table names or column names. What is important it is how Microsoft also kind of advocates it. Microsoft clearly says that it helps you unlock productivity and unleash creativity. So these are the two things it helps with, and kind of consider that it as a buddy that you're talking to, and it kind of helps you uh, you know evolve the responses that you kind of generate out in a much better fashion. Um, Next is we will come to the example that I mentioned, that where we are going to integrate with the open web. Uh, there are four only very critical steps, when it comes to doing this. First, we need to quickly understand what is the OpenAI documentation for image generation. Next is we need to now understand how to build a custom connector using Power Automate. uh, Build a particular flow just to generate the images, and ensure the communication is happening between through the custom connector to the OpenAI web, and return the results to Power Pages. And once that is done, you also need to know how to build the UI versus communicating with that particular system in order to generate the results. So, like I mentioned, I let's move on more from the slides. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, let's start quickly with what is available out of the box to quickly understand some of the Copilot capabilities. Like I mentioned, here, describe the site you want and let AI create the first draft. I'm skipping this whenever you have your particular Power Pages site. I would encourage that you create a particular site and explore this particular capability. The next place where Copilot is available is the page editors. Like I mentioned, as soon as the page editor or the pages workspace is open within Power Pages Design Studio, there is this particular window called Copilot here, which automatically is available. So when you click on it, it says, "Hey, hi Bhargav, what can I help you with? Is it page design, data forms, or generally do you want to ask some questions to which you would want certain replies for?" So let me just ask you a very basic question to Copilot. Let me say, um, what is the purpose of this particular of this site? I'm not sure what will be the response, but let's give it a try just to see if Copilot is working or not. So it says, so that's what it is expecting. So it says, what is the context level? So let's say, how do I enable multi-language support on my site? So there are some pre-built set of questions here. Let's try to work with them. It says yes, but just use this question, or until I close this chat. No, not now. So let me just say until I close this chat. So as you see, the Copilot is there to help you quicken the way that you work, increase your productivity, and if they're working that you want to generate certain content, you can quickly generate that particular content, and also put into your certain placeholders. Like for example, I have a page here. Let's say I have a text component here, and I'm working with the text component. You can ask Copilot to generate some text here based on the current context. So all this particular text that you see for this website, I have generated using Copilot, and I have fit that particular value here into my pages here. So this is one way to work with Copilot. And let's try to quickly see how data forms can be built against some of your existing enterprise data. So I'll quickly go to my data workspace here from the design studio, and I will take a look at what are some of the tables that I have. So let's say I have this particular table called Praxis Offers. I'm coming back to the Pages Studio. So now let's go back and create a form. It says create a form to apply for a credit card, or it says create a form. So I'm going to say for creating Praxis Offers. Let's see if Copilot has the capability of understanding that there is a data table called Praxis Offer which exists, and whether it is in a position to understand the existing scheme of the particular table and throughout the form. So yeah, it is able to recognize, and it says, can you choose the existing table? I am going to choose Praxis Offers here. So as you see, I mean, it says there are some basic set of fields that it has taken out from that particular table called Praxis Offers, and then it has been able to successfully create a form for me. I can choose whether I want to keep this or I want to delete this. I want to discard the changes, and that's how you can get started with building things that you need certain speed with, rather than uh, you know um, build things from scratch, right? So that's about how you can use Copilot from the chat here. I'm just going to discard this for now. You can explore this when you get some time. The next part is, let's say that I have a particular need to work with Visual Studio Code for web, how Copilot plays a part there. So I'm going to open this particular uh, page that I have here called Copilot. So if you see this poem that you see as a text here, this was generated by Copilot. So how was that done? It was done through Visual Studio Code for web and using Copilot from Visual Studio Code for web. So let's take a quick look. So I'm just going to open that. All the things that we're trying to see here, be it Visual Studio Code for web, uh, the things work quite similarly when it comes to Visual Studio Code for Visual Studio Code as well. So as soon as you see here, it says try call Copilot for Power Pages. I'm just going to quickly click there, and then yeah. So what is some of the prompts that I would like to write here? So if I want to just generate some content, I'm going to write. Can you write me a poem titled Copilot? Let's see what is the response it provides. So generally, what I advocate is we would use Copilot to work with code, but it is also important that you need to understand that it is expecting you to you know uh, send out some form of a language, or some kind of a response that you are expecting it in. So, for example, I would say, "Can you write me a poem titled Copilot and in the form of HTML?" Yeah. So, as I said, this page that I have created here is pretty much the poem that I know that Copilot will generate here. So I can copy this. I can take the poem. I can just replace that particular poem here. And that's it. So now you say that Copilot, it was a different poem earlier. We can check what was the poem, and then once you save it, uh, you'll see that the poem will get updated. Okay. I just have to do a control S here. Sorry. Yeah, once this is saved, you need to synchronize changes. Power Pages Design Studio expects you to uh, synchronize the changes whenever you make some changes, either through Visual Studio Code or into the background, especially even from the configuration studio, so that it can work in bringing back all those particular changes into the UI. So as you see, I mean, earlier the point was different. I was able to quickly use Copilot here and say that I wanted it in a HTML fashion. It was able to quickly generate that, add it into my UI, and that's it. You have the reflection of that poem as a static content available here as well. Similarly, Visual Studio Code, pretty much the same. Copilot works onto the left panel similarly like this, and you can use Copilot to accelerate your development, work with generating content, code, and quick script files that are required in order to validate or perform certain business rules or actions. The next part of today's particular session is basically focusing a bit more on a complex example. So, what I was inspired by one of the out of the box examples to create an MSN weather app from one of the articles here. It basically shows how to integrate Power Automate Cloudflow with Power Pages site. Looking at this particular article, I kind of started getting ideas. I built the MSN weather app basically on Power Pages, and then with that I started getting ideas of how I can actually integrate it with certain of other APIs like the image generation API with the Open API. So I was just getting curious and see whether it is possible to do that, and then yeah, I was able to wire up and quickly learn how to do that as well. To start with, I'm just going to show you how to work with some of the API and the documentation. So what I've chosen is the Open API, not the Azure Open API. You can pretty much do that as well. I mean, I feel that it could be more simpler to wire up an Azure Open AI Studio kind of an API integration versus the Open API. I have not done that yet, but what I initially started out with was to integrate with the DAL E3 image generation and see how to go about doing it. So I was able to understand through my experience. I was able to quickly understand the Python code here, and once I'm able to understand how to go about making the required generation calls, and what are some of the important parameters that need to be sent across in the request body for it to response with the provide a response with the image URL, apart from the general prompt, the model, the size, and the quality, and the number of images that it needs to generate. So these are the basic things that were required. So I'm able to understand the body of it, and then I was able to quickly wire up one of Open API registered, and I was able to generate an API key. As you see, I have some API keys here. I've already integrated with Power Automate, right? So the first step is basically to like we saw in the PowerPoint as well, we had listed on four particular steps, which is basically to first understand how to integrate with the Open API. We saw how to quickly understand the Python code. Also, the importance of generating the API key. I have some balance here in order to generate the images. So that is also taken care. So I have enough balance to generate those API images on the fly. The second part is taken care. Now let's come to the flow. So to start with, in the flow there are two components. One is the image generator flow, which kind of uses this custom connector, communicates with OpenAI and gets back the information and sends it back to Power Pages. But before that, it requires this custom connector. So let's see quickly how I was able to build the custom connector. So very basic, I have some basic information provided here. HTTPS, what is the host that I'm going to access? Next is the security. Here is where I'm going to use the API key information. So that part is supplied here in the security. In the definition is where we kind of really are working with the content type and the body, and also what is the response that is received. So this is the crucial part of the configuration which is required for you to ensure that the prompt is sent in a certain fashion, and it is posted to this particular API, and then the response is received as well. So if you see the body, if you click on edit, it has a particular set of parameters. The parameters are the ones that we saw here, basically, which is I think, yeah, the model, the prompt, the size, the quality, and the number of images, right? So here as well, if you see model to use, the number of images, the text prompt, and the image size. So these are the important uh, uh, request parameters that I'm going to send it. And the last is the AI plugin. Nothing much here. We don't do much. And then in the code part, it has, this is auto generated, and then the testing part. So once you're able to successfully create this, test it, and you know that your custom connector is able to access the open API and get you all the information required, the next thing is you will have to build your flow. So let me go back to my flows here and look at one of the instant cloud flows that I have built, which does the job of taking my UI prompt and then passing it on to the through the custom connector as a payload to open API, and then once the image is generated, comes back and sends it back to Power Pages. So quickly, I'm going to showcase the flow that I have created called Flow Image Generator. If you see, I have some successful runs here. Let me just click on edit, and I'm going to provide a quick walkthrough of what this flow will be doing. It's a bit slow, just pardon me. Yeah, something to do with the new design. Means I'm not going to neglect that. So the first thing is from the Power Pages, what are we going to expect? So from the Power Pages, I know that the prompt is the most important aspect. So this is one of the input variables that I'm expecting for Power Pages to receive whenever this particular flow is called. I am using certain variables as storage variables and certain for certain transformation aspects. But the most crucial important thing is to generate image from the prompt, which is the custom connector action that I'm talking about. So these are the parameters which are exposed that OpenAPI expects. So I am passing the required, parameters here when I make the call to the custom connector, and the prompt is, as you see, dynamically being generated. I know that this image sizes are standard. I know I can also showcase, images with the different image sizes here by default, because when I generated the custom connector and the request body definition, I was able to provide all these particular choice values. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as 1024, 1024. Um, and yeah, pretty much I think we have all the parameters. So once the information is generated, the custom connector and the image is required, retrieved, I will work with the following sample in order to be able to look into the response and then return the value to Power Pages. So if you see, there are three things that I'm returning back. Power Pages from Power Page, sorry, to Power Pages. Basically, it is the created one. Copilot, sorry, Open API in the background uses something called revised prompt. If you give it a very small phrase, it kind of expands on the particular phrase, and it kind of, we can look at some of the successful runs to see how it kind of adds its own imagination to that particular prompt, and then the URL as well of the image that has been generated based on the revised prompt. So that is how you, kind of return values back to Power Pages. Last but not the least, one thing that is very important is you need to know how to set up the clouds Cloudflow integration onto the particular site that you're working with. So suppose I have created this particular flow image generator. I need to ensure that this flow image generator has been added as part of my Cloudflows and is available as one of the Cloudflows on this particular site, without which it will not start working. I mean, it will not start. It will. I mean, nothing will work against this, right? So I have two particular what do you say flows here. I did mention to you that I was able to successfully integrate the MSN weather app as well. We'll take a look from the current site itself, just as a quick demo. But yeah, the key crucial part is the flow image generator needs to be available here in the cloud flows in order for it to exist. And the URL and all of this configuration against the roles must be effectively done in order to overall ensure that whenever the authenticated users of your particular site are clicking on the particular submit button to generate the image on the fly, they have the required access and they have the required authorization to perform that particular activity, right? So that needs to be taken care from this particular setup workspace, and ensure that the flow that you have generated is available here for consumption. So the quick thing that I have learned here is when I'm working on standard sites which have the standard data model, I have issues adding the cloud flows in this site. The moment I add it and I go back to other workspaces and come back, it does not showcase here. But what I'm observed is the moment I created an enhanced data model site, and I was able to work with the Cloudflare integration seamlessly. So it's also something that I've observed for other external app integrations like Stripe and DocuSign integration as well. That some of it works with with the enhanced data model. So that's one quick tip that you would want to keep in mind. So what I have done here is the last part is after the three things that we have taken look into. The last part is basically to create the JavaScript and the HTML and the CSS. So based on these particular samples from MSLearn, I was able to quickly wire up my own sample for the image generation. So I'm going to quickly showcase what the code is. A very basic boiler template code which has been extended. I'm going to remove the Copilot window. Yeah. So as you can see, it starts with some style elements, which of course I can separate into the CSS file, but just for this particular, I mean, I haven't actually really spent time. It was a very basic example I wanted to achieve. So all of it is available here within a single HTML file itself. But of course, you can actually separate this. So from the style perspective, I have certain style aspects which I have implemented, going on with some of my rows and containers here. I have a very basic uh, text box which I have for the users to enter a particular text as a prompt and a submit button, and have a vertical very basic spinner which kind of spins till the image is communicated through the flow and goes into the API and fetches the images and binds it back. You would want to show the user some kind of activity going on, so I have a spinner which I have loaded onto the page. The real magic is happening on the script block here. So what happens is when you click on submit here, if you see within the script block, there is a listener which has been added on top of the submit button, which executes as soon as somebody clicks on that particular submit button. It is doing some uh, basic styling aspects as soon as it begins its operations, and this is the crucial part. So what you're seeing here is value underscore URL, and this particular value that you see of the cloud flow, this value is actually coming from the design studio here. So if you see, we under the setup, we have the cloud flows here. So the moment you add the cloud flows, it will start showcasing here. And in order to use the cloud flow, you need to ensure you copy this particular URL to the clipboard. And whatever I am using here as well, is basically the URL here, which has been copied from that particular integration, right? So I am creating certain very basic set of payload variables, and then initializing them and passing the payload to a very Ajax safe post request. It's a post request, so it kind of expects a particular payload. The payload is in the fashion that we kind of already saw, which is basically what is the uh, you know model that we are going to call, what is the size, all of those particular, and the prompt, all of that is basically what the payload is expecting. But in this case, the payload that we are passing is very basic attribute, which is basically the prompt. The rest of it is actually getting generated in the flow itself. Once the safe post request is completed, it will generate the response. I'm just putting it back onto the console so that we can also see what it is actually throwing out there. And my intention is basically, I have a particular gen image, image block on in my UI here, which is the this in particular image ID. And then my intention is that I want the UI, whatever the image that has been generated by Open AI, to be binded back to it. So that's it. And then I'm just working with some styling elements here. So quickly, this is the code, but it is actually triggering that particular flow which we saw here. Basically, this flow image generator, which is doing most of the heavy lifting in the background of communicating to through the custom connector to the Open API, and returning the image. So let us try to preview this particular page and see how things are working in the background. I'm not sure, it's a bit slow today. I'm just going to close here. It can take another 30-40 seconds for it to load. Yeah. So as you see, this is one of my sites, and I have a tab called concepts here. And like I mentioned, I have the weather app as well working here through the same philosophy, which is basically triggering a flow here. So this is one of the standard out of the box Microsoft examples. So I'm just going to provide Denver here and click on submit, and let's see what happens. As you see, there is a very good bootstrap card which has been generated here with some of the weather information pertaining to Denver here. So you can actually create predefined widgets which you can display on your particular website if you have plans of sectionizing your website in a particular fashion. The next, the actual example that we need to look at, which is basically image generation using OpenAI. Let's come in here. I'm going to use one of my favorite prompts, which is basically says, grandmother praying to goddess Meenakshi along with her grandchild with folded hands at Madurai Meenakshi temple. I'm just going to quickly click on submit. So as you see, there is a spinning which has started. I think it should work. Yeah, I think something to do with the way the page looks when it comes to the spinner. But yeah, eventually, as you see, once you click on it, it is able to generate an image for me with the size that I have predefined, which is 1024, and it sticks to the prompt that I have actually provided. So let me just give another prompt here. I'll say an ant seated on top of a tree branch and eating a juicy Alfonso mango with an expression of sarcasm. Let's see what it does. By the time this loads, I wanted to quickly run showcase one of the existing flow. I mean, flow runs to kind of help you guys understand what's happening in the background. Which will be the last part. So here, say make dot power automate. I'm just going to open that so that I can by the time. So yeah, so it's able to generate an image which says, okay, it's just eating a mango, and pretty much it's able to communicate. But how is it actually happening and how the communication is happening in the background? Let's take a quick look. Let's go to my flows. Flow image generator, and let's look at the last successful execution. Yeah, so like I mentioned, this gets triggered from the JavaScript code, the function, the script function which I mentioned about, because to the payload, to the Ajax safe post request, we are providing this Cloudflow URL, which can be the URL which can be accessed from the Cloudflow's setup workspace. So as you see, the prompt is retrieved from the UI from that particular text box, and it is successfully being passed. And uh, as I mentioned, the heavy lifting is done by the custom connector here, which is basically it goes and communicates with the OpenAI and generates the particular response. So this is the input parameters it supplies, and these are the output that is received, which is basically created. And within the data particular output window, you can see the revised prompt and the URL as well, which is basic the URL of the image that it generates. So I wanted to check if let's try to check if I directly put this into the window, what happens. Yeah, it's able to show me that particular image, right? So basically, in the end, I'm just doing some transformation to the data that I need to pass back to Power Pages, and setting certain variables, and sending that information back to Power Pages. So overall, this is how you can actually bind your Open API calls or some kind of AI calls in the background, and integrate and develop intelligent components onto your Power Pages site as well. So yeah, that's about what I wanted to showcase today, and I think we have seen some good examples. Quickly, I'll just try to generate one last prompt and post that we can break for any questions. So I'm going to say a cat playing with a ball in the swimming pool wearing cool sunglasses. Let's see by the time it generates the image. Uh, I'll probably pause here and hand it over to Varth and Kamal, and I'll pause for any questions.
Thanks, Bhargav. That was an awesome portrait of your Power APIs and Open AI image as well as. So definitely it kind of intricated me to kind of try it out now. So I'm going to try my hands dirty to see what I can really do with a lot of things. So I could see how easy it is and it's seamless to integrate those applications, whether it could be weather or a podcast, or even if you have any simple web app, it was so quickly you could get it done. So I'm really, and the power of Copilot with it, it's kind of making you even more things easier. So that was a really a very nice demo, an excellent demo. Someone who's really starting to explore things in the Microsoft 365 bubble, and they want to see what all they could explore. I think this is one of the right spot to give it a try. So yes, I do have a lot of questions. So I'll start pulling out one by one in the meantime.
Yeah, sure.
So first one, I just wanted to know, you were showing the flow image generator, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So do we have an option to kind of customize the prompts, because the Copilot is all runs under that prompt stuff. So just wondering,
Correct.
do we have an option to customize prompts, or is it kind of pre-filled prompts?
So are you talking from the perspective of the uh, the open API calls that we are making, or is it pertaining to the co-pilots?
No, for the open API calls I'm talking about.
Yes, it is. It is definitely something that you can customize. So every time, you can probably provide a new description here, and it will take here. You
Okay.
can actually extend the prompt in such a way that you can add some of the UI parameters. Like for example, let's say you are communicating. Let's forget this system, Kamal, and let's say that we want to integrate with Mid Journey, right?
Mhm.
With Mid Journey, it has a specific aspect ratio. It expects. It says that what are your separation parameters. So all of that you can actually build your UI here, and you can provide those particular parameters for the user to select, and then work with your prompts, dynamically generate those particular prompts, and submit it to systems like Midjourney. What I'm trying to do here is just trying to showcase how to
Mhm.
scratch the surface with OpenAPI. So it's a very basic sample, right? So I'm just trying to put in something very big, very basic prompt, and let's seeing what how it retrieves the prompt, and it can actually
Mhm.
kind of showcases the made. But if you see, actually, even Copilot is revising the input. Uh, so yeah, I think that I forgot to actually showcase that particular last part. Good that you actually asked me this question. So I gave a very basic prompt to say that an ant is eating a mango, and uh, so this is what it is actually making it out, right? I
Mhm.
was just saying an ant is basically sitting there enjoying, and it has a sarcastic expression of eating a mango on a particular branch. But look at the revised prompt that actually OpenAI is doing. So it is filled in
Mhm.
with a lot of details in order to generate that particular uh, you know uh, uh, response back.
Indeed,
So
indeed, I can
you
see
can,
that.
yeah, yeah. So you can definitely, to simplify the answer. Yes, definitely you can extend your prompt generation from the UI itself.
Mhm. All right. We have another question from the audience. I'll pick it up. It's from Khalil. He says, so it does not support multilingual sites. Please confirm.
At this moment, a site, I would say, you can definitely in Power Pages create multi-language sites. And when you develop multi-language sites and you're developing custom components like this, you can actually work with content snippets to provide the language support required, even when it comes to the prompt generation, right? All you need to know understand is whether the engine that you're working with, like for example today I'm working with Open API, you need to understand whether the Open API has the capability of receiving multimodal input, which is basically it needs to understand from several languages, prompts from several languages. If that is available, then
Mhm.
pretty much you can actually build a multi-language support site, and ensure that all these custom kind of pro code components that you're developing on your page as well support those particular language aspirations.
Definitely. I suppose Khalil, Bhargav has kind of answered your question. So if you still have any questions related to the lingual support, you can reach out on his LinkedIn profile. We'll share his social media, so you can get in touch with him. Another question that we have is, what is this? I mean, you've been talking about the cloud flow a lot, right? So what
Yeah.
is this instant cloud flow that we have. Can we do
Instant
one?
cloud flow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So an instant cloud flow is basically a cloud flow which gets triggered on instantly. You want it to work immediately for you, right? Like for example, I wanted to click on the submit button,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to trigger a background process for me, which will do most of my heavy lifting and communication with my external systems, which is basically the OpenAI system. And
Mm-hmm.
what is helping me here is the flow image generator flow, which I showcased, is an instant cloud flow, which
Mm-hmm.
gets triggered immediately on the click of my submit button here. So the JavaScript code that I showcased, let me just quickly get back to that. So the JavaScript code, what it kind of expects is it expects the flow URL, right? So the instant cloud flow gets triggered in the background through the script, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is something that you fundamentally need to understand, that when you click on the submit button, which is basically plain HTML code there, how is it actually triggering the flow in the background and getting the image? So it is actually triggering this particular instant cloud flow in order to retrieve the response and bind it back, right? And my instant cloud flow is working on the Power Pages trigger. Basically, whenever a prompt is being received from Power Pages, that is when you want to trigger that particular flow. So if you see the script here, the script is basically just taking a very basic prompt and triggering this URL. So this URL is the flow, instant cloud flow, which I have created in make.powerautomator.
Okay. All right. So we have another question by Sandeep Angara. He asked, "Can we also do this with just a HTTP action in the flow?"
Good question. HTTP action in the flow to trigger the Power Automate URL that we are talking about here, I would not recommend. It almost puts you in a scenario where you are triggering a flow from a flow, right? It kind of might introduce that parent-child flow kind of a concept there, because endpoint, this particular endpoint is actually a flow in itself, right? So of course there is no limitation that you can't do this. I haven't personally tried that, Sandeep, but yes, definitely you can attempt to do that. I don't think it might not work. But only thing that you need to be wary about is how you're going to bind the information back to Power Pages site, right? Because your Cloudflow integration is what will set you up in terms of the communication required for Power Pages to understand that there is a background process that is going to be triggered from Power Pages, and you need to wait for that input, because your submit button is working from the context of Power Pages. When it comes to the HTTP post action in flow concept that you're mentioning, you might want to additionally look at some of the missing threads when it comes to the binding required for Power Pages, right? For it to out of the box seamlessly understand a process is being triggered from the context of Power Pages. So that's the only thing that I would want you to look at. But yeah, I don't think there is a restriction there. But one thing that if you're trying from that approach, be wary of the concept of parent-child flow getting triggered within in itself.
All right. Thanks, Bhargav. So, Sandeep, I hope your question has been answered. And we have one question from Nakudin Harris. Hope I'm not pronouncing your name incorrect. A little bit difficult to understand, but let me explain what I understood. How difficult rating for me as a beginner to start build this type of pages, or any programming language needed to know? Thanks. I'm just thinking that I'm just assuming that you want to understand as a beginner how long does it take to learn this language and build a page like this. If that's the question, I think it totally depends on your skills, and a few basic programming, HTML, CSS, and kind of tools that you can easily navigate. I think that is what you require. If you go through the learn modules provided by the Microsoft, I think they're easy to understand, self study, very quick learning modules. So please have a look into it. I think we will have the links posted here, or you would find it at the Reactor event page itself. So if you still have any questions or anything as such, please leave a comment. We will maybe get back to you on it. I think Bhargav is also trying to show the learn modules that can help you. Yeah, Bhargav, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, so great question actually, Mr. Harris. So do not actually lose heart when you start with it. You will definitely are going to stumble with how I'm going to do things, how am I going to plug in something, where am I going to put the code, how am I going to act, really develop components. So all of that is very jittery, right? It's going to be a bit of a journey there. So what I would always encourage is first understand what are some of the out of the box capabilities, what are the features available, and then look at extension capabilities, right? So there are quite a lot of experts that have given some basic set of examples, like what you can access in the learn documentation, and also certain great youtube videos, especially which happen through certain community events. I generally follow Nick Dolman. Immediately whenever there is some interesting concept which comes in Power Pages, he being in the forefront kind of immediately releases a video or against that particular integration or how to go about utilizing it. Of course, I mean, open AI is a different concept, but some of the out of the box integrations as well, where there could be code samples, right? Even let's say this MSN weather example. So those things, there are some industry experts who quickly actually showcase this very hands-on videos of how you can actually develop it. So start doing that amount of R&D and research to begin with always, before you actually develop things. Amount of R&D and research before you develop anything is always going to set you apart when it comes to the later stages of your development, because you know that you would have thought about mentally all the possibilities that exist, and then it will give you that particular divine route that you want to take when it comes to development.
Very true, Bhargav. So research is the key point. So with that, I think we are done with another season of Copilot Chronicles. Thank you, Bhargav, so much for this wonderful demo and how to kind of get easily navigate into Power Pages. So thank you so much, Parth, for being a host and audience as well. So we are done with this session. Looking forward for a few more sessions going forward. We will change the format and get back to you with the updates. And thank you so much for joining. Have a nice evening, guys.
Thank you everybody.